Hey everyone, my name is Nachum Russell, or Russ to most of you, because no one can say Nachum. I feel like that's my opening line at this point on every show that I've done so far, because nobody can say my name. And this is my friend Bree Charity from BC, I guess.
Yeah, from British Columbia, Canada.
Canada, our neighbors up north. Um,
Yes.
so, you want to introduce yourselves a little bit before we kind of start chatting, let everyone know who you are, what you do, and all that?
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Bree. I'm from British Columbia. I'm the owner of Maverick, and I started BC Canine, which is a training behavior modification program here in British Columbia that helps empower owners to take control over their lives and better help navigate the relationships with their dog.
Awesome,
From
sounds
my own
good.
experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. So, from your own experience, and that's what I kind of want to talk about because I know that a lot of trainers have their story of their wild child, as I call it, right? Their dog that got them into it. Like I have mine, I have my Marley. But I think the cool thing about your story is you're kind of early in it still, right? Like you're kind of fresh out of that and jumping into helping other owners, and you've helped a bunch of owners. It's not like tomorrow you're getting your first client, but you're
Yeah.
kind of still early in that. And I'm curious your story and your transition into helping other owners and all of that.
Yeah. So, I'm still on my journey. Like I I'm still learning. And so when you speak about that, it's so true is that it's only about a year and a half ago, I would say. I brought my book of vet bills. So like this, all of this in here, I mean thousands of dollars, where's the camera? Of vet bills. And I labeled them and I had them highlighted. So I mean this was my reality not too long ago. And switching to the trainer side, I have forgotten a lot about it. So I'm really interested to actually dive back into the and how I got here and why I got here because it's always changing for me. It's very like a dynamic thing in which, I mean, COVID happened. I went to my internship there, but I went to California to learn how to dog train out of California and what I would have thought like the best facility because it's really all I knew. And before we got onto this live, we were kind of speaking about that, and I'm still green. Like I don't know what's out there. I don't know who else is out there. I don't know who are world class trainers and who aren't.
You're
So,
talking to him.
pardon?
I said you're talking to him. I'm the world class trainer.
That's so neat as I got to meet you through this experience. And others that are passionate about training as well. And so I'm constantly learning and meeting new people and learning new things and how to implement that. And so yeah, it was only in January that I went to California, and then COVID happened and I was called back home. And it was like, okay, I did the thing and now I'm back on my own and now go. And it's been a harder transition. It's been a
Yeah.
hard transition. And so I'm still
So,
in it.
what was like Mav's big issues? Like, I know you have this notebook filled with vet bills, which obviously means he was probably dangerous, or a danger to himself, or something like that. But what was the big thing that pushed you to like, I need to get real help and eventually get into all this training?
So it started right when I got Matt. It got him around 6 weeks, which was 2 weeks too early. And he was consuming inedible objects all the time. So socks was a big one. Face cloths, clothes, anything on top of his crate, he would pull through. He would bite, he would nip. And when I'm saying like bite, nip, like it would hurt. I was all over my hands and my arms. Clothes again, just ripped and shredded. He got into because I didn't eliminate free roaming, which we'll do because I went through a trainer and I went through the vets and everybody had given me their 2 cents of advice, but no one had told me to eliminate free roaming. So really interesting that there was a lot of other things suggested to me, but when it came down to it, was all um, it was all after he'd gotten into the garbage can, and again, it was socks. Socks were his biggest thing. Socks and anything on the ground that had any smell of food, or just he would just consume it, like so scattered that he would just consume anything. And so I guess I thought that things were manageable at first. Like, he's cute, he was a puppy, so a lot of shit got shifted under the rug. I also didn't want to take a lot of blame for his behaviors because I started to notice, like, when we would go outside, he would be so bully and lungy and would be okay with certain dogs and then other dogs not okay with. So I'd just say, like, over time, things started to get, it was harder to deny that it was a problem.
Yeah.
Like, I would justify a lot of this and be like, oh, it's okay. And other people would tell me, oh, your dog has ADD, or your dog, like, one person said he had Tourette's, which is just like, he's not exhibiting any sign of that.
Yeah.
But and also on the autism spectrum. So, like, there was a lot of assumptions that were thrown around for something that no one understood, and I didn't. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that he definitely was not going to be, he didn't have mental health. I knew it wasn't that. Yes, he had separation anxiety, but again, this was created by me. And so over time, the actual catalyst, I think, that got me to the point where I needed help was a full-on breakdown. Maverick, there was a puppy that was brought to the property once. There's two things. But once there was a puppy that was brought to the property, Maverick was on a back tie because I had him outside. I wanted to give him more access to outdoors, but not have him run away. So the best way I could do that at the time was back time and put him outside. Well, I later learned that with an entitled that primal with instinct, he was guarding territory on a leash in the backyard. That just gave him full reign, act however he wanted with someone who came onto property. So there was one time a friend brought a puppy and Mav grabbed the puppy in the mouth. When they put the puppy down, then they went to grab the puppy away, and Mav put him in his mouth, dropped him, and again, that was a freak out. Of course,
Scary.
Petrified. My friend's mom was in tears. I was in tears. I felt terrible because it's my dog. My dog did it. And not knowing what to do. And so I had a breakdown there, and I didn't know what to do. And I would like to say that this is where things were like, this is where I asked for help, but it wasn't. It wasn't where I asked for help. And it's not that I didn't ask for help. I'd already gotten help in the past. Like, I hired a trainer from Siberian, had her for about 2 months, and then enrolled Maverick in a puppy classes, socialization. For the first year, he wasn't able to attend those puppy classes because every weekend he was in the hospital getting something pulled out of his stomach, induced vomiting, anesthetic, medications, anything. He was always in the hospital, and like, that sounds like an exaggeration, right? Like, the whole year every weekend. It was my ex-partner could hold me accountable. Almost every weekend he was in the emergency, all up and down the island too. We would go up and down the island, and so it was from Victoria to Nanaimo, Ladysmith, in between. He went to every vet on the island knew him. Wow. And I wish that was an exaggeration, but it wasn't. We went for a walk once at Beaver Lake, which is a lake around the area, and just to show you how much people knew him, I had a lady go, "Is that Maverick?" I had no idea who this lady was, never seen her before, and I turned around and just go like, "Hey, yeah." Like, why do you? And she goes, "Oh, I work at X-Veterinarian," and I'm like, "Oh my God."
Your dog was famous.
But not in a good way.
Yeah, he was infamous.
Yes, and it's interesting too because the back vet, so the people that working in the back of the vet's office, they had a different experience with Maverick than the people at the front. So front staff had happy-go-lucky, excited Maverick. People in the back got like aggressive, fighting, scary Maverick, like red tape. Like, his name was in red everywhere, and it was like, proceed with caution. Get more people, get more man force over here, and it was bad. And he I would say the needle in the haystack is when he broke his toe. Like, what kind of luck is that? I
Yeah.
don't know, but I think actually, thank you, whoever sent that. It was a blessing because it got me here talking to you. We were running, it was wet outside, and he slipped. And he broke, it was on the back left, he broke the fourth and the fifth digit of his paw. And that's his weight, like that's where they bear their weight. And so anytime he would go to step on it, street, we were about 45 minutes up the mountain, and I was helping. I couldn't get my dog down. He was like 60 something pounds. I can't carry him. Anytime I touched him, he's crying and he's shrieking. And I had no idea what to do. And yeah, and that one, long story short, I took him to the vet. And the first thing the specialist said to me is, I can't go near that dog without heavy anesthetic. I can't touch his foot. I can't even look at it. And I was like, I don't want to swear, but I was like, I didn't, first of all, I already had this whole thing full of vet bills.
Yeah.
I was like, where am I going to get? I was covered under insurance, but what meant more to me, or was more terrifying to me, was I had no idea what to do. And I was told I have an aggressive dog that I'm not able to control. And it weighed back onto me. And I had breakdowns after breakdowns. That was just the start of the shit show. Like, so it was already bad, but that was just the nail in the coffin for me.
So I'm curious, what held you back from like getting help earlier? Were you like not admitting that this is a serious problem? Was it like, I'm just curious because it's something that I see with a lot of owners where they'll live for years sometimes with a dog that has these issues until they finally reach out. And it's always something that interests me, is like, why are you staying that way? Why are you staying stuck?
So it was actually, I was misguided with the wrong information. I was seeking help. I hired a private trainer who came over to the house for an hour a day, right when I got him. So before people say like, don't put your dog into puppy classes until they're 12 weeks or 11 weeks, whatever it is. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to put him in until that age. Brought him home. So I hired a private trainer to come over. I went on Google, like I would thought I'm sure a lot of people do. And I went to research a reputable trainer. I phoned about 4 to 5 of them. I did my own interview process on the phone. Like, I'm a very diligent dog mom. And that's what it was. It's like, it's not a lack of caring. It's just a lack of actual guidance and information, the right path. And so I was doing all the things that I was told to do to no avail. It wasn't working. And then when I would ask for help, when Maverick actually broke his foot, I reached back out to her. Because again, we couldn't go to the puppy classes because he was always in the hospital. So that's why the first year I couldn't get that help. No one had told me about board and trains. I had no idea even some people offered board and trains. Hadn't yet met a local trainer in my area. Hadn't yet heard of that. A lot of balanced trainers I've now come to learn high. So they weren't on the internet when I went to go search for them. And it was just the path that I led down, but it wasn't that I didn't want help. It's that I asked for help and got, I wouldn't say the wrong help, but not the right help. I don't like right and wrong, because the intentions were there. Like, I understand that she meant well. She meant to help, but she helped me in the only way that she knew how. And so when Maverick problems got really bad, like, because he was never quote unquote aggressive, it just, if people came in, he would be more excited and aroused and kind of go straight for the crotch if they were male, very entitled and just possessive. But it wasn't until he broke his toes that he started to bite the vet, and he had never bit him. And when I kind of laugh at myself now, because I'm like, I showed you for a year and a half that's where it was going, but no one could de-escalate it. No one could stop it. By no one, I mean the family members. Like, we didn't know how, because we weren't told how to say no. Right. Like, no wasn't told to us as important. Boundaries were not told to us were important. Limitations were not told to us what was important. Just the priorities were not the same. With what's your dog's name? Let's teach your dog the name, and let's like hold your dog up and get them to settle, and we'll drop them back down again. And don't go on the couch. That's not where you want to be. And just very, honestly, a little racist too. The guidelines in my training said to expose my dog to different cultures and different people with different cultures and different skin tones. And I was like, what? When you actually like read down the guidelines of what the training entailed, it was a lot different
Well,
than the way that we.
I think it's good to expose dogs to different types of people.
Yeah, I just wouldn't say like go introduce him to a colored man, a Chinese man. Like I
guess it was getting too
I wouldn't.
specific.
It came off in a not an appropriate way. It wasn't like, hey, expose your dog to people, of course, but it was very stereotypical, and I mean some of them were quite racist.
Yeah,
I won't read them out loud. I don't have them here, but
I do think there are some dogs who aren't exposed like just what it is. Let's say a dog that grows up in a very white neighborhood, who's not exposed to people of color, African Americans, whatever the right way of saying it is, and then sees it. I've seen dogs who then react to that because it's different to them, right? And I think that, and I've had people. I used to work at a facility, and I've had people come in and be like, "My dog is racist. He only barks at black people." And I'm like, well, when was the last time that you spoke to a black person? When was the last time that, like, not to get into that whole political discussion, but when was the last time you interacted with somebody who's actually different than you, right?
Yeah.
So
when's your dog actually been in those environments?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I laugh a little bit now, but it's like, I didn't know that, again, it's just, they can't see as much of the facial expression as in with me. Like with me, I'm lighter skinned. You can see what what's approaching. But say when it's dark outside and there is somebody of a darker skin tone, they can't see those micro expressions in which they catch on to right away. And so what it is, it's unknown. So it's not like that your dog's racist, they don't like black people. No, it's unpredictable. It's the same thing that we're teaching, but it's unpredictable and it's approaching. It's moving and they don't know what's moving. That would scare the shit out of me too. So that's absolutely, I think that it's very important to now go and expose.
Yeah.
But when I was reading it, looking back, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And I like how you gave the context to why. There was none. It was just like the typical, you invite your trainer over and they give you a package and like, hi, do some reading. Here's your reading. Well, I didn't do the reading.
Yeah, and I think that what I've found is that the most owners, I've heard trainers say owners don't care why, they need to be told what to do. And I think that's not true. I think that most owners actually really want to know why, because if you don't know why you're doing something, you're going to stop eventually. At least I could talk for myself. If you tell me that there's something I have to do and this is the way you're going to get results, but I don't know why, I might try it in the beginning. Eventually I'm going to stop because I'm the type of person that wants to know why. And I think most people want to know why, especially when it comes to something as important as their dog, a family member. They want to know, why is this going to work? Why am I doing it? Not just put your dog on place or don't let them on the couch or whatever it is. It's like, give a bigger picture so the person can actually understand it and it makes sense. And you're actually humanizing it to the person, but I don't mean humanizing the dog. I mean making it make sense to the human, right?
Yeah.
And you're likely to do it. But when there's no why behind something, like the how and what's going to disappear very quickly.
Yes, and there's nothing to apply it to. Like, I'm a very why person. I'm very curious. Like, and growing up, I would ask was what people would say is too many questions, or people wouldn't have the answer, so they wouldn't encourage my questions anymore because they couldn't answer that. And saying I don't know was a big one. A lot of people can't say that. I grew up for a long time being told that I don't know is a wrong answer, but it's like the most honest answer that you can do. And I would rather somebody say I don't know, and I would also rather say I don't know, so that I can open up an opportunity to learn how and why. Like, I always, even through school, I needed to know what I was learning and why it was applicable. If I can't apply it to my life, I'm not going to be able to actually solidify that information. It's not going to become concrete, and therefore, beauty of humans, we can generalize when we know. When we know something, then we can actually generalize it, which dogs can't do. Why training's good, but we can generalize. But you can't if you don't know why it's applicable.
Yeah.
You're just going to bypass it. So
I think the
Absolutely.
biggest disservice that, I mean, this is off of dogs, but whatever, it's fine. The biggest disservice that I think educators do for children, and I'm speaking like, I guess, from my experience, because I was never a teacher, although I worked in a school for a while, and I saw this happen as an adult, and when I was a kid, is not saying I don't know, like just coming up with some stupid answers so that you always seem like the know-it-all teacher, and kids pick up on it very quickly. And then looking when they're adults or they become teenagers and they start to think for themselves more and more, and they look back on it, they realize like, you were just talking a whole load of shit because you couldn't even say I don't know, and now you expect me to actually care about everything else that you said, and it kind of throws all the validity out the window of everything, as opposed to the 1 or 2 times or 10 times in a day that you actually don't know an answer because you're just a teacher and you're following a curriculum. You say I don't know to the student, and you're going to completely change the way they view you, because they're going to actually have respect for the fact that you don't know. Or I don't know right now, I'm going to go home and research that for you, right?
Yeah, it humanizes us.
Yeah, I I relate to that one a lot. That's why I went off on that. But I think it's such a real one, and it's played out a lot in the way I try to teach now, because having those experiences as a kid of not being told I don't know by teachers, like I don't remember ever a teacher telling me I don't know, and and not having that, it plays out a lot into how I try to teach, whether it's through my content or in person with owners or whatever, is explaining the why behind everything. And also, if someone asks me a question that I don't know the answer to, just I don't know. Right? Like,
do you ever find that sometimes that and again, I speak to my own experience starting out too, and learning the do's and don'ts, and not even do's and don'ts, but like what works, what helps, what is really helping, and what isn't. And it's not about me. That's something that's like really big to transition to. It's like, I know what helped me, but what helped me might not help somebody else. So how can I shift? How can I pivot? How can I feed this information in a different way to help them? And it's like, how do they learn? What type of learner are they? And you don't need to know the different types of learning, but you need to know how to show up for that person and what's going to help them understand. And within school, I remember math being one of them. I used to aim for like 50%. It would just be because I never thought I was good at it. I just accepted like that's hard. You don't know how to do it. Everyone says you're bad at it. So I would just make up my own answers eventually. Like I wouldn't think I was, but I'd get to the back of the book to check, like check. I'd be like, wow, that's like, I don't know what I was doing. I was very confident with the right answer. But what it was is I just wasn't, I learned a different way. I needed a teacher that could teach it to me in 3 different ways. And that's a really good teacher. A really good teacher is one who's failed before, who embraces failing, who knows what it's like to go through and not understand, because that's what makes a good teacher, is they learn different ways to bring that content forward in a way that's good.
And that's what makes a great trainer. Like I was chatting with a trainer friend last night, and we were having this exact discussion. And I think what makes a dog trainer a good trainer is being able to be in tune with each dog separately and teaching that dog accordingly to what that dog needs. And because anyone can follow a book, anyone, you don't need any skill of any sort to open up a dog training book and says, if a dog does this, hop on the leash. If a dog does something good, give them a treat. Like, yay. Anyone can do that, right? What makes a good dog trainer is somebody who can really be in tune with the dog in that moment and be like, this is what this dog needs to learn right now. And putting aside everything that you thought beforehand, putting aside everything that you thought was going to work with this dog when you spoke to the owner on the phone, putting aside like the whole ego of like, I know everything, and actually learning from the dog in front of you. That's what makes a good trainer, because you're actually, like you said, you're educating that dog in the way that that dog needs to learn. And as much as I think there's certain things that kind of are across the board will work for all dogs, I also very strongly believe that every dog is different and needs to be taught properly.
Yes. Yeah. You're doing a disservice, I feel, if you go into it thinking that they're just like different and everything's going to be able to be applied the way that we've learned it. That's not like
right.
That's not how things are. That's not how it plays out. And what's incredible too is like, not only are we working with that dog, there's a whole nother ballpark, a whole other ball game that's involved in that. That's that shit with the owner. When I say like that shit, I just mean the relationship dynamic. Has it been romanticized? That's a huge one. I romanticized my relationship with Maverick, and I'll say this open and honestly. I got Maverick. I wanted Maverick since I was like 16 or 15 years old. I fell in love with Siberian Huskies. Anything that looked like wolf, but typical one that I would see a lot in public was Siberian Huskies. There was something about them, and I say like it's past the appearance. It was spiritual, and I'm still putting my finger on it. I'm discovering a lot more of it, where that comes from, which is exciting, and it's part of my own journey. But Maverick, I've wanted since when I was 16, and when I got him, trying to figure out. Sometimes I get off track. Where was I starting on this one?
You romanticized him.
Right. Okay. So this is what I got him. I wanted a dog that would love me and never leave me. I wanted a dog that would accept me for who I am in the worst of the worst. And I don't mean like I was a terrible person and wanted somebody to like accept me. I didn't feel I belonged anywhere. I was striving for a love and a connection that I didn't yet know, but it wasn't being fulfilled in other relationships. And it also came from me just being very, very, very vulnerable. And that's something I've worked through. I'm still working through. And when I got Maverick, it was very much like I wanted him to be around me at all times. I thought that being an alpha meant that your dog followed you. Yeah. So like I would get up, and I remember this can be a friction point in relationships. Big one, when the dog listens to one partner but won't listen to the other, because it's like, well, why isn't that dog listening to me? They don't have that relationship with me, but they're following you, and feelings can be hurt in relationships. So I remember multiple times that I would get up and Maverick would follow me, and I would be like, yeah, because I'm alpha, but I wasn't even anywhere near alpha. There was no respect, none. There was love, but there wasn't any respect in the fact that like, hey, you got your shit together. I trust in your leadership. I wouldn't even, looking back, didn't trust in my own leadership. Yeah. So, I mean, that perpetuated throughout the relationship. So when I say like romanticizing, I gave him everything that I would have ever wanted. But that's coming from that selfishness part of me. What I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be not judged. I wanted all these things, but it wasn't what did Maverick want? And I didn't know. Right. And I feel that a lot of owners are in the same boat.
I think that a lot of people kind of self-rescue through dogs. I kind of did it, like when I got Marley, and at the end of the day, it turned out well. In the beginning, it didn't. But I think a lot of people do it because dogs are portrayed as these all-loving creatures that will just be there for us, right? When the reality is, I don't think dogs really give a shit about people. And I don't mean that like your dog doesn't love you. Your dog loves you and wants a connection with you, but you got to do something to get it. It's not like you just bring your dog home and they're just like, I'm all about this person. They're all about the food you're giving them, and they're all about the bed that you're letting them sleep on, but they're not necessarily all about you, right? And I know from my own journey with Marley and then with the other dogs that I've gotten since then is that I had a really loving relationship with Marley when it was all about love. I have a much deeper relationship with him and my other dogs now when there's boundaries and leadership and respect and mutual trust and all of the things that people seemingly think are not nice or not fun or not like a good part of a relationship has made our relationship so much deeper than I ever thought I would ever have with my dog. I thought I'm just going to have a dog that's going to be my big baby forever. And like,
hey, I remember your sweater. You take him in your sweater.
Exactly. Marley was about this big. For people who are just listening, he was about 3 months old when I got him. So he was maybe like a foot long, which was big already then. And I would hide him in my hoodies and zip him up, and he'd just have like little ears sticking out of the top of my hoodie, and I'd take him here with me, and I'd introduce him to everyone as my son, and I didn't do anything that I tell owners to do at all. I did everything the opposite except for crating. That one I was good on. And I loved him, and I would venture to say he loved me, but we didn't have like a deep connection in the way that we have it now. It's very different now. I think there's something very deep about the connection that you can have with the dog where you can walk through a field where there are other things around that are very exciting and he'd rather be with you, right? Not where you're just walking in the house and your dog follows you around everywhere because you guys are kind of codependent on each other, but more that it's like your dog would rather be with you than chasing the rabbit or whatever exciting stuff that's going on. And like I saw a post today, I don't remember who it was from, but I saw a post from someone today that basically said, if your dog doesn't want to be with you, like if your dog is running away from you, it says a lot about your relationship with your dog, right? And not to be mixed up with the dogs that follow people around the house all the time and can never be away from their owner, but more like a dog that actually is trying to escape from the owner. It says a lot about the relationship that it wants to get away from you that badly. Kind of went on a rant there, but I just think that the relationship that builds from everything else, right? The relationship that builds from the not obvious stuff, like everyone knows to love a dog, everyone knows to feed a dog, everyone knows to play with the dog and to give it affection. Like that's a given. I've never had to teach an owner to give it more affection to their dog, but the stuff that's not a given is the stuff that I think builds a deeper relationship with dogs in general.
Right. And when you speak of that, it's like if we shift the focus away from that dog, like how is that person interacting in their own relationship? How are they showing up in their relationship? What are they bringing to the table? Are they avoiding confrontation because they're conversation, difficult conversation? Are they seeking out external needs to fulfill internal desires? Like it all goes hand in hand. And it all adds up and it all feeds into the relationship. It's being aware that your dog is taking tally of you like every single day and every single moment. And that's something that I learn in every single dog that I have is something different about me, my movement, my pace. Sometimes I'll pace back and forth because like anxiety is a toughie. It is tough to break free from old paradigm. And I think that's why I get a lot of separation anxiety cases because one, that's what I market. Two, that's what I speak to. And that's where my specialty lies because I wanted to go into psychiatric and psychiatry. So for me, connection and human connection and belonging and socialization, all of that is so important. And pinpointing it even further, the psyche. You and trainers, we shape the psyche of a dog. We get to take the relationship that they have with their owner and deframe it and then rebuild it and reframe it. And to me, that's so exciting. That to be able to change the perception is powerful, but it also takes a lot of awareness and courage. And I always like to remind those who work with me or whoever I'm speaking to, it takes a lot of courage to ask for help. And it brings us back down to like just saying, I don't know. That takes courage to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know everything. And that's part of too, like starting something new and going into something new, knowing that, and this is, I can speak for clients because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. It's completely new. I remember putting Maverick on plate and I never went into it with this perception of like the next day, literally 12 hours later is going to miraculously fix. I knew it was going to take time. But his like, I mean, I tell clients this a lot. I'll say like, we'll do work, we'll do duration work. Everyone will sign up and go like, I know this is going to take time. It's a transformation. And I kid you not, the next day they're like, this isn't working. The dog's moved like 20 times. I'm like,
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and I can see how quickly people can lose patience. I understand it's hard work. I mean, it takes a lot of commitment and consistency to be on top of things like that. It's irritating for people because we want immediate gratification. And when I hear that, like, it's not working, like, okay, well, let's take a habit of yours. Let's write it. Let's be conscious of your habit. Let's mark it down every day. How many times have you gone through this habit that you're doing? I don't know if it's picking your eyelashes, if it's like whatever it is, your unconscious habit you do every day, track it. Now, be conscious of those habits and change them. And then get back to me and let me know if that's happened in 12 hours.
So I heard an interesting one. I wrote a post about this like a couple of years ago. So probably nobody who's watching this heard of it. So I could say it again, and it's brand new to everyone.
Everybody go back to the old post.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, and probably my writing sucked then.
No.
But if you're a lefty or a righty, I'm a lefty. So if you're a lefty and you brush your teeth every day with your left hand, and try for a week straight to brush your teeth with your right hand, and see how weird it makes you feel. Something as simple as brushing your teeth. See how weird it makes you feel, how strange your hand's going to feel, how it's not going to hit the right spots in your teeth. Everything's going to be off. You're going to feel stupid, right? And it's something really, really simple. Now imagine changing up your entire way of life, which is essentially what we're asking dogs to do. Change the way you think, change the way you feel, change the way you act, like just change, right? Most dogs that come to us, I know come to me, and I'm assuming you work with a lot of anxiety cases that come to us for training, they kind of need like a whole do-over. Like, let's start things over again, right? And that's a lot to ask of a dog. So of course the dog is going to mess up. Like I tried this before I wrote this post. I tried this brushing teeth thing for a week, and I felt really dumb, and I messed up. And every time I would go to brush my teeth, I would grab it with my left hand, and I had to like switch it. And I would start to do it, and literally mid brushing my teeth, I would switch hands because naturally it wasn't right. And something so simple like that. And then we're going to ask a dog to like get over its anxiety in 24 hours, or to like learn a new behavior in 10 seconds, or to stop doing something that it's done for 4 years just because you told it not to one time. Like, are you serious? This is what the dog is.
Yeah, the body is conditioned to act before it's even consciously aware of it. Yep. And how long has it taken to get there? I love that one. Like, how long did it take to build this?
Yeah, and if you think about it on the other end of it, like for trainers, I know a lot of trainers listen to this and watch this, and like for trainers to think about it too is we're also expecting owners to change, right? Because
that's the first change.
Yeah, and it's not just a dog change. Like you said, there's this whole other side to it, which is the owners, and we're expecting owners to change. And try it. Like everyone who's listening to this, try brushing your teeth with your opposite hand for a week and see how stupid you feel. And unless like I'm just the only idiot in the world, so I felt stupid, I'm assuming other people are also going to have a hard time with this one. And
and even doing it, like you say, do it, but do it.
Yeah.
Because I thought about this before. I'm like, I should try that. I don't believe that I have. I don't think I actually have tried changing other habits. I think that one, grabbing what hand I use for functional purposes, grabbing a cup. Very habitually will grab it with my left. What about using the right hand? Like different, small difference.
Right. And it's something so small. And then when it comes to dogs, like, and owners, we're asking for a shit ton of small things all day, right? Basically everything to be different. And it's huge. And that's why I tell owners you're going to mess up. Like you're going to mess up. But you're not failing. You're just messing up. And you're going to make mistakes. And I just was working with an owner yesterday, and I told them, like, because they have one dog who's home already, second dog is going home in a couple of days. So I broke up their training. So there would be like 2 weeks in between where they could start to work with the first dog. And they were talking to me about the first dog who's back home. You guys might have seen him, Gus. And they were saying that he was doing really, really well. Then they walked past another dog and he just became reactive again. And we're talking through the situation of what she could have done differently, how she could have prevented it rather than waiting for it to escalate and things like that, right? And then I said, though, at the same time, like, you're a human. You're going to mess up. You're going to miss the moment. And every dog trainer out there misses moments. It's just that you're not seeing those on video because no one wants to show it. And it's not cool to put up a video that says, here's a video of me messing up, which I do every day, right? It doesn't look cool and no one's gonna hire you. But dog trainers, if they're honest about it, will admit that they mess up all the time. They miss opportunities to correct, they miss opportunities to reward, they do things wrong with a dog that they could have done better. And that's just part of being human, and part of working with dogs is accepting that and then moving forward and doing better. I think it's an important.
It's very important. And it goes again right back to that learning something new. We don't want to be bad at it. We don't want to fail. Speaking from my own experience, like, you're more uncertain and you think that you're going to cause harm. And the last thing, especially when you're working, like, it's not only is it hard to start something new when you're not good at it, you're not ever good at something for the first time. That's a lot for me to accept because I like to be perfect at everything. So that perfectionism, being perfect, accepting that life isn't perfect, we're human, we make mistakes, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just feedback. And so I'm really shifting that with like how I'm showing up with my clients, talking about good and bad, not good, bad, right, wrong, feedback. And we're working with a living animal. Like, they're gonna have bad days. When I say bad days, some days we wake up and I don't want to do it, or like I don't want to. I want to sleep in a bit more, but it's like I have to. But on the days that my body's telling me like sleep in or take it time, dogs are gonna tell us too when it's not the day.
Right.
Like some days it's not the day, and I know, I know we don't show this, or a lot of trainers maybe don't show this. Maybe you do. I haven't been too much on social media. I'm working on it. Consistency. I'll talk to this after. Consistency is difficult.
It is.
It's difficult. And the easy shit's hard. It's easy to be like, I need to, or what am I trying to say? It's easy if you think about it, to say it. Oh yeah, I'm going to post this and create some content. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of discipline, a lot of commitment. It takes all of the things that owners don't want to do. Not even owners, people. Avoid doing.
Yeah.
And it shows up in dog training, and that's why you'd said, like, we don't have to teach owners how to be more affectionate. You get a dog to be affectionate. We don't get a dog to teach it rules. We get a dog to be affectionate. That's our problem. And we do an injustice because we're not guiding them through our world in the ways that is appropriate for them, how to behave. It's like having a baby and then being like, hey, grow up.
Like, you're on your own now.
Yeah, I birthed you, but grow up.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. And it, my sister trains horses. And so growing up, I always watched her. She has this thing where she'll train. I don't know what it's called. I'm not an expert on it. But what she does is she'll stand in the middle of the ring and she'll have the horse come out and bow. And it's her signature thing from training. It's just what she's done since she was a young girl. And I always remember being like, how the heck do you let a friggin' horse just surrender to you like that? There's no words. You don't use words.
Right.
You don't use your tone. It's nonverbal. It's an understanding.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you teach somebody that understanding? It's difficult. But we perceive, and this is too, like, we perceive animals differently, and then we just dictate what rules we apply to which animals.
Yep.
And then we position ourselves on the top of that structure as top down. And when it doesn't work that way, we get frustrated. But there's no understanding. And so it comes with like that trust in meeting your dog where you're at, and you don't know what dog you're with. And you may not even know that dog. Half the time we don't. And so they come into this environment and they have to learn all these new things and then go back with their owner and then have that be a seamless transition.
It's never seamless.
What a dog walk through.
It's not seamless. It's never seamless.
For me in my training, I try to make it as seamless as I can. Like, I try to make that transition. No, it's not going to be seamless, but I try my best to make sure that the expectations that I have, not even expectations, but the degree of accountability that I hold a dog to, I try to make sure that that is the exact same when they get there. No, it's not going to be the same with two different people, but if you can get it to the same or much the same as you can make it easier on the dog. I guess what I'm trying to say is
Right.
you can make it either a harder transition or an easier one. My objective is to make it an easier transition. And
Yeah.
the more empowered that owner is with the information, easier it'll be to make that transition, or but also more confidence they're going to have when they have the backball, because it's not going to be a linear progress.
100%.
And it's like, where are you going to be when that?
What would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned from your experience going from struggling owner to client to trainer fairly quickly that you now try to give over to your clients, not to the dogs, but to the humans that you work with?
Hope.
What is it?
Hope.
Yeah.
Hope. It's refinding. It's not refinding. It's reconnecting with hope. And that's what I want to bring home to owners and people, inspiration, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because I remember having my head in my hands, crying, literally asking for anything to help me. I was on social media reaching out for anybody and everyone to help me, to no avail, had no help, nobody. And I would ask my old trainers for help, and they were not able to help me, which for me it blew my mind that I could contact a trainer who's a professional dog trainer and has all these credentials or whatever, and then I have an actual problem, and they can't help me because their methods don't. Or also, I don't want to take away from the fact that I believe it's extremely admirable to accept when something's over your head and you don't have the ability to help. But I believe that if you were a professional dog trainer and someone came to you with a problem, regardless of what the problem was, you would have an ability to provide some sort of insight to help alleviate it, or know of somebody to reference me to, or something. But there was nothing. It was very much like, I can help you with all your problems to start when you get your puppy. And then if you actually have a problem, such as separation anxiety or aggression, I unfortunately can't help you, which speaks to the method.
Right. And then it leaves you hopeless when a professional can't help you, and seemingly the professional that's supposed to be able to.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I'm like, I would have killed for me. Like, I would have killed, or for you, but like in that moment, anybody, but I would have loved to have had someone that was online sharing their story. I wrote to Caesar. Like, I wrote to him. I
Did
tried
you get
to
a
find my
response?
letter. Pardon?
Did you get a response?
No, I'd be working for him if I did. I bombarded him on all Instagram accounts and everything, and I wrote him a letter, and then I ordered his book, and he brought hope to me. I never was interested in the dog whisperer. And my sister and my mom got to meet once he came to Victoria he did like a comedy show or something. And I heard of him, the dog whisperer. And it wasn't until my dog broke his back to toes, and I know it kind of circles back to when you said like what really made you think, like not even think, but what really slapped your face basically. When with training, when Maverick went to bite me.
When he went to bite you?
Yeah, because you can justify and rationalize your way out of anything. You can have an emotion, and then your brain can justify your way out of that. You'll just keep going. You'll keep going down kind of like this thought until it's like you justified your way out of that train of thought. So it's many times I would know that Maverick was uncontrollable. He wasn't even allowed at my mother's house, like for family events and whatnot. It was Maverick needs to be left at home. Maverick was a nuisance. He was a tyrant, called Wreck-It Ralph. Like, just absolutely nothing. You wouldn't want Maverick anywhere because he eats shit, or he's going to knock things over, or he's going to be up your butt, or like, he's unpredictable. No one wanted him around. And when he broke his toes, I went for his collar. He was outside. I went to grab him by his collar. Don't grab your dog by your collar. Just don't do that. So go to grab by the collar, turn around and nip me right in the hand. And I'm not talking nip like stomp. And I was like, Kate, we've got a problem. And I knew I think I had just read like maybe the first chapter of Caesar, and I for the sake of this live, for those who don't know, when Maverick broke those toes, it wasn't just Maverick broke his toes, had to go to the vet once and things were done. He was in a cast. Okay, Maverick had to go to the vet twice a week. He had to go once a week for them to look in to make sure the bacteria wasn't building in between the casts. Then he had to go bi-weekly to get the recast redone. So once a week he was in the vet. Because it was raining and because of his bratty personality, he would have to go in twice a week because normally something would happen to his cat. Get wet, or he would fight it, or something was happening. Oh, he would whine so much. He was on about 6 different medications. So this is big. 6 different medications. All because they told me that I had to decrease physical activity. He couldn't walk. He couldn't
6
run.
different like psychotropic medications? That's insane.
One
Damn.
was I mean, I could go through these ones. So what it was is I know gabapentin was one of the last, and that was to increase the effect of all of the trazodone. He was wearing off. What happens was he was building a tolerance to all these medications.
Okay.
So the more medication I was giving him, he built tolerance to it. And so then he would just start like screaming in the middle of the night or whatever it was, because he was in pain and because he wasn't able to walk anywhere. And he wasn't calm. So what I would do is get another medication to get the objective of him being calm because I couldn't sleep. I also work a 9-to-5 job. So the fact that my dog isn't letting me sleep and I have to go to work to get the money to pay for the vet bill, to pay, like, I was at a point that I just broke. Like, I didn't know what to do. And the vet was telling me that you need a 1-to-1 private trainer. And I kind of like give a look like this. Like, I've done, so what I would have perceived then, I would have told you I've done everything I can. So if you would ask me then, I would have said, I have done everything in my absolute power and financial ability to do this. And for the past 1.5 years, I've had to pay for ingested objects. Not only does that hurt him and his well-being and physically, but also financially.
Yeah, that hurts your pocket a lot.
No, and I mean, I could walk you through the diagnostic process of an ingested object. Absolutely. And I could walk you through each of the different tests they're going to do and approximately what the prices of each one is going to be, down to your walk-in fee. Like, that was my second nature. I just knew that. So when he bit me and they're like, you need a private trainer, and work's telling me I can't get any time off to take him to the vet, but the vet doesn't open until 8 and I start at 7:45. Like, things like that people, I mean, you can hear me talk about. When you're going through it, like, you don't have the emotional capacity to think like, that's just 15 minutes, ask work for an extra 15. They told me that dogs were not children, so you can't take time to the vet. Well,
it's kind of ironic that you got that message from your work who wasn't being nice to you about it, but you got that message that was probably important to hear, but you didn't want it or didn't need it then. But it's kind of ironic that you got that message from them.
Yeah, right. Like, I just had no help. I mean, at the time, people, I can't say I had no help. There were some people that would help, like drive them to an appointment when I couldn't make it, and thank you for those. But I very much felt alone, very isolated, very lost, hopeless, helpless. Nothing could help me. I didn't think that there was a light at the end of that tunnel. And to hear that my dog had anxiety and all these things, like, as people, we know what that can feel like many of us know. And so to feel that your dog has it, it's like, what? How is it possible? And like, did I create it? And then blame. So after all that just came like this fulfilling cycle of blame and shame. I'm a bad dog mom. I'm a bad, like, very identifying as bad, but it was like, no, you did everything in your power. No dog owners are bad. No dog is bad. I think getting that, understanding that they're not bad people. It's not your fault that your dog's like we may have created the problem, but we don't need to live in the past of the shame.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. I think
Yeah.
that I think that there's a rhetoric out there. It's whether it's outwardly said or not of every single thing your dog does is your fault, which maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but I don't even really care because
Mhm.
all that that message does is makes owners feel like shit. And then it makes them, if it's my fault, then I shouldn't need someone else to help me with it. I should just stop doing something. But what should I stop? And like, what am I not doing right? And if it's my fault, then I guess I just screwed up and I guess I just messed up. And it leaves them in this vicious cycle of blame and hopelessness and shame and all these bad stuff that shouldn't exist there. It should just be like, hey, I need help. Right. And
Mhm.
instead of giving the message of like it is your own, it's your fault, which I understand where that's coming from because yes, humans obviously play a role in their dog's behaviors at this point. I'm sure you know that really well, but it's more of like it's your responsibility, not your fault, right? Fault makes someone feel like shit, it's all my fault, I'm the one to blame. Responsibility is just as much as you're the one who got to here, you're also the person who's going to be able to pull yourself and your dog out of here. And that's empowering, right? It's an
Yeah.
empowering way of looking at it rather than like it's all your fault, you piece of shit dog owner. You did everything wrong. Like you suck. You should have known not to do this and this and this. And you should have read 10 books before getting a dog. And why didn't you have a trainer lined up beforehand? And all of these stupid things that really are just not reality because that's not how anyone works. Instead, it's let's look at the power of your relationship, right? Your
Mhm.
relationship is so strong that it was able to create this menace out of your dog, right? And if we take that same power of your relationship that was able to take a sweet little puppy and turn him into like a dog that no one wanted around, and you called him a tyrant, right? And Wreck-It Ralph and all these great names, like
Mavdick.
what?
Mavdick.
Maverick and all these things, right? That was created, and you recognize the fact that you played a role in it, which only goes to show the power of your relationship with your dog. Let's take that same power now and let's harness it to do the exact opposite, right? And that's a much more empowering way for an owner to actually look at all of that rather than just saying, which I see a lot of people in the dog industry putting this message out of that it's all your fault, where if I was an owner reading anyone's thing online or in a book or anywhere that it's my fault, I'd be like, all right, so I'm fucked because this is who I am and it's my fault. Rather than
Yeah.
you have power in your relationship. You've created this issue because your relationship is so powerful. You can also use that same power to completely change everything. And that would be like inspiring as hell. I'd be like, let's do this.
That I love that you say that because it's harnessing the control. You have control over choice. You have control over creating the life that you want to live with your dog, but with you. Like,
Yeah.
who do you want to be, and how do you want to show up for that dog? I remember, like, I would wake up at 5 in the morning. Like, I kind of wish I had a GoPro for the first 2 years of the life, like a year and a half. Everyone can know because I feel like I don't even do it justice speaking about it. Like he had me going like clock. 5 in the morning is when, because I was under the impression, I love this one, exercise is the end all be all. Your dog's got to go to the dog park, have a happy life, meet friends, be social, get out and release energy. Like what I thought. I thought the dog park was like the best. However, dog parks where all the shittery happened. Not always was I there at the dog park when Maverick would act out. Act out meaning if there was a more submissive dog, Maverick was very dominant right. If there was a more dominant dog, Maverick would back away. However, there was times where he would be on top of the dog and my friend would go in tears because she's had this terrible encounter at the dog park with an owner slamming Maverick on the ground. Like, just so many different things. But the thought of why I thought it was okay to go there was, again, to release energy through exercise. And people are told all the time, oh, you have a husky, he's a runner. Oh, you have a husky, you must have to exercise him like 30 times a day. Well, I used to think like that. All I did was create a very highly skilled athlete that was full of endurance, because I'd run him all the time. So I'd run him at 5 in the morning up on the mountain. I'd go to work. I'd come home and he would bark at me for the second run, and we'd do the second run. And then it got to the point that, of course, because we pattern behaviors, I pattern, the behavior that at 5 a.m. we went for a run. And then when we came home, I went to work. And then when I came home, we went for a run again. So he would actually just start telling me what to do. And I would do it. And that's what's so funny is that when I go for consultations or when I meet new owners, I see the same thing. It's like your dog has trained you. Your dog has you on a schedule. Your dog owns you.
Yeah. And
that's a big thing to swallow.
Yeah, it's huge, but it's also so powerful. Like, I think with all of this, there's two sides to it to be looked at. There's like, yeah, it's hard to swallow the fact that you fucked up, right? You could have done better. But it's also really powerful to see what that created and what it could create, right? There's potential in that. That's the way I like to look at it a lot these days, because it's so much. First of all, it's nicer, but more than that, it's matters more, because you can sit and think about all the fuck ups and everything you did wrong with your dog and how you wish you would have known this and how you wish you would have known that. Like, I have people tell me all the time, I wish I would have known that I'm supposed to do this, this, and this with my dog, right? But who cares? Like, here we are now. Now you know it. Now take it and do it. And if you're stuck on like the past, you're holding your dog back, you're holding yourself back, and it's only going to create more fuck ups, right? Rather, let's be like, you have this awesome power in your relationship with your dog and in everything you do with your dog and in the way you live with your dog to completely have a different life with your dog. I think it's cool as hell that you have a husky that's off leash most of its life. I think people need to see it more content. But
Heard landed.
Most people think that huskies can never be off leash. The average husky owner, like, if I'm sure you've been on like husky Facebook groups or shit like that, all they say is like they're runners, they always have to be on leash. Rescues tell everyone that huskies can never be trained to be off leash, and like, you're living proof of the reality. So,
and when you say that, it falls right back to I've taken a lot of, like, I get it, people take things for granted, me too. I don't even like how I started that, people. I take things for granted. I'm just going to own this right away, guys. And for a long time, for the past year since I've started training with Maverick, like, I took the reins right on that and all the information and I was so just deep dove right into it. And where I've gotten now, I find that I take all of that for granted. When I go running on the mountain and I'm like, Russ, we were running together, and it was like this fluid motion, and I don't know how to explain it, but it was very spiritual, and we were in sync, and we were running, and he was off leash, and we were side by side. And we spoke about this. It's like, I think that in that moment, I'm like, oh, I know why I'm doing this. I forget though sometimes, because you can get so in your own shit. I have been in the past, so deep in it that you can't see what you were speaking about, those other perspectives, like those opportunities, because when you're so in here, you can't see all that. You got your blinders up to what could be, such as an off-leash dog, or going and running with your dog, or just life not being chaotic. You can't see it because you're in it. And having that outlook, being so optimistic that way, it's nicer, but there's truth to it. There's so much truth.
Yeah.
But it's become almost taboo because a lot of people don't take that risk. It's a big risk. You're doing something you've never known that you could do before. And I forget that, Maverick's just laying here, and he'll lay here beside me while I work all day. I'll go to the bathroom. I'll go upstairs. I'll go outside. He's still here. That was not possible. And that's small, but the fact I take a lot of that for granted.
It's huge. It's not small at all. It's huge.
Right.
And that's part of me taking probably with you that used to be a psycho is huge. Like, that's what people pay big money for.
Around the living room. And I mean, I had an L couch, but I never actually jointed it together appropriately or attached it. So it was just kind of like for aesthetic look together. Maverick, if I took a shower, I don't know what he'd do, but I guess he was upset that I decided not to leave the room. You know, like, how dare you? The owner that I own leaves the room without permission. But that's what your dog's like thinking, by the way. Like, hot lap, just kept doing them, and he would separate the couch. So I'd come back and half the couch was in the kitchen and half the couch was in the living room. With probably, he also tore a hole in that couch at the same time, like ripped the hole and then took out. And all of that, if he wasn't into the bathroom and getting medications out of stores and getting it out. Like, dangerous stuff. Dangerous.
Yeah. And that's why, like, so a ton of trainers have their story, right? Their dog that got them into it. And I think it's so important for us to share it in one way or another, to let people know about it. Because when the average owner, let's like think back to, let's say, yourself, right? And I can think back to myself, but I didn't know that dog trainers were a thing, honestly, when I was struggling. I thought there was Cesar Millan and dog owners. I didn't know that there was anything in between.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Cesar, like.
Right. So I didn't think that, like, and I was a dog trainer because I watched Dog Whisperer, so it was fine. I didn't need anyone's help. But the average owner, right? If you like went online and you saw like this trainer who has the husky who runs off leash every day on a mountain, right? And like it's beautiful, and this dog is barely ever on a leash, and he listens all the time, and everything is great. You would think it's never possible. You would think like, okay, that person has some magic thing that they do, and that dog is like perfect genetics and a perfect dog. But I have like these dumb mutts, and like they're not gonna do shit, right? They can't do anything because I don't have that magic touch and I don't have that magic dog. But then when someone finds out that Maverick, this dog that's running on a thing, or Marley, who's like whatever, like pretty cool and does things, right? Like they were both these dogs that were complete psychos and like chewed up everything and ate my passport and ate my glasses and ate my shoes and ate my socks and ate fresh baked breads and like destroyed a house, right? And bit people and had dog fights. And like I can go on for a long time of all the things Marley did. But then like people see that same dog hanging out with 6 or 7 other dogs off leash at a park, right? And going places with me. And being a fairly good dog, it gives them a lot more perspective on the fact that their dog can actually change and can do it. If not, it leaves them just thinking that there's dog trainers who have some sort of magic, and then there's them, stupid dog owner, who just messed up everything up and they're screwed, and that's that. And it's another thing of why I think it's important for dog trainers and why I try to show the journey of the dogs even I'm working with, right? Because show the dog on day one pulling you down the block, and show the dog lunging at you or growling or whatever it is. And it's not always possible to show it all, but whatever it is, show it, or have the owners talk about it. And then show the dog back home with their owner or through the process, like not just the beginning and the end, but show the process and show that it's possible. I think that alone in itself, the hope aspect of it, like you said, your goal is to bring hope. The hope aspect of what an owner sees in things like that is massive. It's like, there's some potential left in my dumb mutt, right? Like my dog can do it.
And it comes back to it, and I'm very honest, and it works against me and for me. Comes back to like, and we've spoken about this, and so I'll get open about it. It's like one thing that not even one thing, something I love about Maverick taught me is the importance of not just, I know present, but being. When I say being, I mean like authentically yourself 100% of the time without any inhibition of scrutiny or thought that of what someone else is thinking about. He's who he is, and he's honest about it at all times. He never lies about how he's feeling. No canine will. They'll always be honest with you. And for me, it's like, that's what I want. When I think of my essence and my being, I'm like, I want to be 1,000% confident in myself, in my knowing, in who I am and what I bring to the table, like he does. I watch him all the time, and he just is so intuitive. He's so instinctual. It's instinct. But his instinct is our same intuition. And so when I watch him, I'm constantly, and I know like bringing this to the social media front would be awesome, being consistent in doing it. But I'll sit there. So while I'm not being active on social media, I'm literally observing Maverick and dogs, and I'm thinking about life. And it was you who said to me, you're like, I can't remember what this was, but it's really relevant for dogs. But it was with dogs, you change the way that they behave before you change the way they think. You
Right.
can change the way you think all you want, and you can stay there thinking for days and days and days, but make no action. But
Yeah.
the dog, you're changing the way that they're acting, which thus is changing their thought process and their overall operating system of how they regulate. Whereas me, I'm like, let me just read my 7th book here, and then I'll be ready.
I think in general, there's like this overemphasis in, what would it be called? Like, not modern personal development, but I guess that's what it is, of like thinking about everything a lot and meditating for hours on end and becoming super spiritual. I can't even say that word. And like, and all those things are great. And I don't want people to think I'm bashing any of that. Meditate for hours on end if that's what really makes you happy. I don't give a shit. I'm going to work. But like, what I think is like action, right? Because if you're just like, Gary Vee has a great quote: you can't get strong by reading about doing push-ups. And
you would too. That's such a
right.
good one.
And your dog doesn't get better by reading dog training books, and we don't get better by reading how to get better. We get better by being better. And with our dogs, why it's so powerful to me is because we do it all the time with dogs, right? Like, when people ask about changing a dog's mindset, most of the time the response is going to be with doing something with that dog differently. Because we can't read a book to a dog and all of a sudden they're going to be like, oh, that makes sense. I'm going to relax now. Let me go meditate on my place bed, right? Like, dogs are not going to get that. We have to actively change them. And by changing them day in and day out, doing the same thing, patterning, conditioning, programming them to be different, they become different. And we're not that different than them as much as we're very different than dogs. When we break it down, we're all primal and we're all a bunch of animals. And like, yeah, we're like more intellect and we're higher spiritual beings and emotional and all that awesome stuff. But like, when we go down to the very essence of it, we work the same way. And to me, it was very powerful when it started really to click for me. I kind of had this idea in my head for a while, but when I started to actively be doing it with other beings, it changes it all, because I'm like, I'm doing this with them, right? I'm changing the way they think by changing the way they act. Why is everyone not doing it? Like, it just makes sense.
Yeah. If everybody could do it, the world would be a way.
And I'm not perfect. I'm not like fully developed personal development person or whatever it would be called, like at all. I just know that I know what I see works, and dogs can mirror a lot of that for us, or for me.
Yeah. And I'd say that, Russ, totally are. We're not a finished product though.
Right.
We're always going. We're always learning continuously. And through our experience.
Yeah. And through what we do.
Yeah, and dogs teach me a lot. And every time I work with a separation anxiety case, my last one, well, there's a couple, I'll post it. But there was one of Kenzie, and she's a little Havanese, and for years before, she was in the show world and she was just held up to all these expectations of her. And I mean, no, we didn't have a conversation about how her time was in the show world, but I know from the experience of what I've heard about that and relating it to my own, as appearance was a lot. I was a professional figure skater, so it was, how do you show up? What do you look like? You are judged down right to your appearance and your aesthetic and how you've executed a jump or a spin flawlessly, like everything, your speed and your movement. So like, I too related to Kenzie in the show world industry, and what I had thought of that is that, like, always being held to expectations that were unattainable. And so the time that I was working with Kenzie, I was working through a lot of self-acceptance of imperfection. And her story actually inspired me to continue going. And whenever I'm working with a dog, I'm like, not that the dog's frustrating, my own, whatever I'm going through, whatever my experience is with myself, and I'll want to quit, or I'll be like, this is too hard. I'll be like, did a dog ever give up on you? I'm like, no. And I don't mean that I would ever give up on that dog, but I'm not going to give up on myself, because all these dogs that we work with, we don't give up on them. We help them through it, and they get through it. And that to me is rewarding and inspirational, because I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
I'm helping them do it, and in turn, they're helping me do it. And so I learn something from every dog I'm with.
Yeah, dogs are the greatest teachers if you actually want to listen to them. But
yeah, they teach us many lessons that we were not aware of we need to learn, or we have yet to learn. Not even need to, but have yet to learn.
And the cool thing that I find of learning from dogs, that things that I've learned from them, is a lot of these ideas I've read, right? Or I've heard someone say it in a speech, because like I do love to read and I do love to listen to talks. It's not like that's not important. But when you actually see it, right, firsthand, and you play a role in that, then it really makes it more real, because it's tangible. It's not just an idea that's on a piece of paper from some great writer or some great talker said it on a podcast or in a speech. It's tangible because you did part of it. You made it happen, and you watched it happen, and you helped it develop, and then it's automatically going to come back, I could say for myself, to me, and reflect in a way to me of what I might change, what I might feel, what I might think that could be different, because I just experienced it with this animal by helping them think differently, behave differently, act differently, feel differently, all that stuff. And when it's tangible, and when I play a role in it, and when I watch it and see that process develop, then it hits home in a much more real way than some great talker said it on a stage in front of 1,000 people and I watched it on YouTube, you know?
Yeah. And I always, kind of speaking to that, is when I went to the internship for the good dog, Sean O'Shea, he was right there, like under Caesar. Like Caesar, and then it was like, and now I call him the Irish Caesar, so the like. But what's interesting is, I thought I read his one of his books, that Bridging the Gap or Closing the Gap. Closing the Gap.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Sean. I'm advertising for you.
Yes, everyone should read that book. Dog training related or not. Read that book.
Please. I think I told you I was hit by a car walking through an intersection reading that book. I was like, this is the best book ever. And to be fair, I was in an intersection, so they need to stop. But for that, I didn't think that Caesar was attainable. So like the same core concept of what you're talking about is that I saw him on TV, I saw him on all these different things. He was up what I would say a celebrity status that wasn't my world. We live in the same world. We have the same opportunities. We have the same ability to do whatever we want to do and create. But my mind was like, no, he's too good. Like, he's way out here. I could never meet that. Like, I could never. It was I needed to reach for something more attainable, is what I perceived. Yeah. But that's just your perception. Everybody has gone through their own experience to get to where they are, and that's why it is like when I hear Caesar talk about jumping the border and not eating for 2 weeks, like those are sacrifices, but you don't see that necessarily when you're like, oh, this guy has his own TV show and he's inspiring the world, and you come to his house and people are crying. Like you want to make a global impact, but at least I felt someone was already doing it. So why try? Which not the right way to think, but that's where I was coming from. Someone is already doing it and he's already sky high out of here. It becomes unattainable and then unrealistic.
And it's the problem with celebrity status, I guess. But more than that, really, it's the problem of how we look at people. We don't realize that nobody gets to here just because. It's not an overnight thing. Mm-hmm. Like every single person that I respect, you respect, that we respect in any field, whether it's dog training or personal stuff or figure skating or anything, right? Like they didn't get to the top just because they woke up there. But we don't see all of that shit that they worked for. It's just like the dog who's running around on the hill off leash, right? He didn't get there overnight. A lot of people might not ever have known that this dog has a notebook filled with vet bills or like a shit ton of money that was eaten in my dog's
file.
Stomach, right?
Filing system, actually.
you have like a whole
diagnosis,
that stuff. right? And people don't know it. You see it. You see somebody that you respect, or you see a dog who's very well trained, or you see a dog trainer that's doing amazing things, and the first thing that comes to most people's head is that person is an amazingly talented person, right? Or that dog is like super smart, right? When the reality is that dog is just a dog, and that person is just a person who worked their ass off, and the dog is just a dog that had an owner that worked their ass off, and like it didn't happen overnight. And that's again why I think it's so important to share journeys, to show processes, to let people know, like, besides for the hope aspect of it, it's real. It makes it real. And when you just see somebody up here, or you just see a dog, like a finished trained dog, right? And you just see that stuff, it makes it seem so unattainable that the average person closes the book and goes back to living life with their shitty dog who bites everyone, right?
Right. Back to like, oh, that's nice, but can't happen for me though.
Right. And
that's nice, but not meant. I can't do that.
Yeah, that's why, like, let's say Cesar Millan, right? He was your idol, right? But then you find out, like, he didn't start off having a TV show and having the dog psychology center and having his ranch with 15 different animals running behind him, right? He didn't have all of that. He was like an immigrant struggling on the streets. He was homeless. He worked his way literally from the bottom, and it makes it that much more real, like tangible, and I could do that too. It makes it.
And it resonates.
Yeah.
Like you feel that grind. Even I haven't experienced that grind, but not even grind. You feel the passion.
Yeah.
It brings me to tears to hear people's journey and how they got to where they are. It really does. It really is important. I think there's a lot of emphasis that should be put on it, and I should share it more.
I'm glad you got the message.
Landed. I got it. And that's just it. Like, people can take the message and not do anything with it. I will do something with it. But yeah, back to like picking and choosing what people take. I don't have do you have this with your clients? No problem. I'll just take the live, but I don't know. I can't see people's comments, so I can't answer.
I'm giving him special privileges because he got off a place, which is really bad, guys. Don't learn from me. But this is what's happening right now because he's just wandering around the room, and I don't like it that he's bothering other dogs. So he's going to chill with me. But you're going to go on the floor. Sit. Good boy. Lay down.
And so, like, why on the floor?
Oh, why on the floor? Because he has 4 legs that work really well, and he doesn't need to be on my lap.
And maybe we're going to go into, like, status. But I love your answer more than that.
Well, because, like, he doesn't deserve to sit on my lap right now. He's being a shithead.
So about that, I love this, and I'm sure so many owners do this because I do it too sometimes. A dog, if you want your dog to listen to you and they're disobeying, you have to repeat your command maybe 4 times, and then the dog comes back, and then you pet it and you say, good boy. Yeah. Was he a good boy, though?
Like, does your dog actually deserve to be called a good boy?
Yeah, it's like that dog just blatantly ignored you for the first 2 minutes, actually. Yeah. And then finally, you held them accountable. They came, and then you're rewarding for that. But it should be neutral and nothing. I just thought it was funny because you're like, he has 4 legs, and he should be down. He doesn't deserve this right now. It's like, this is a great opportunity to talk about.
Yeah, well, what is positive reinforcement? Since everyone, like, loves to talk about accountability and all that, we could also talk about positive reinforcement, because I think more dogs get messed up from rewards than they do from punishment on a general basis. I think so. Not because rewarding a dog is bad, but because rewarding a dog when it doesn't deserve a reward is bad. And that's what people do on a daily basis, 24 hours a day with their dogs. They live a life of reward for a dog that doesn't deserve shit. Like, that dog shouldn't get any rewards in its life. It should learn to earn stuff. But instead, we just reward it. Like,
being reciprocated with some mutual respect. It should be mutual conditions that are met.
If somebody gave, like, I love training dogs and I love what I do and I love my life and, like, it's awesome. If somebody gave me $1 million check right now, I probably would cancel a couple of clients. Like, I'm being real. I'd cancel a couple of clients and invest and just go on vacation for a little bit. And I think every person who's really honest would agree. Why? Because you're getting a reward for something you haven't done. And that's why people who win the lottery end up losing it all really quickly and becoming depressed. They're given this massive reward for absolutely nothing. You scratch something off on a piece of paper and now you're the wealthiest person in your little village. And right, and you won the lottery and you buy all these things, you do all these awesome things, and then you become depressed and commit suicide. Why? Because you haven't worked for it. You've done nothing to actually earn any of that. But we do that with our dogs all the time. We wake them up in the morning with a kiss and a hug and a mush and a you're the best boy in the whole wide world, while they just peed all over their crate and they howled all night. And then they go on the walks and they pull you down the block and you tell them who's a good boy, and you play fetch with them and they don't bring the ball back and you reward them, and they get food from the table when they're begging because you're really cute and your puppy eyes are adorable. And we make up a ton of excuses to give your dog the lottery life when they haven't done anything to earn it, right? People who work really hard for their money generally appreciate money more, right? And dogs that work for their everything generally appreciate their everything more, and they're going to start to actually appreciate you more because there's a reason to care about you. And I think that one of the biggest problems is that people are not taught what reward is. Like, there's a lot of emphasis in the mainstream dog world, because I think balance trainers are like counterculture. But like in the mainstream dog world, there's a lot of emphasis on rewarding, but there's no emphasis on teaching what proper reward is and when to use that, and that it's not just giving treats. Touching a dog is reward. Talking to a dog is reward. Anything that's a resource to a dog, that's important to a dog, can be used as a reward. So when it's all given for free, you've just given your dog the lottery life, so of course they don't care about you. Who gives a shit what you have to say? You're going to give it to me anyways. And the dogs know it. That's my rant on rewards.
It's very true. It's very true that they don't have to give you anything in order to get that.
Yeah.
Very much, and that feeds right into the entitlement.
Yeah. And
no discipline, and no ability to sustain that money. Like when you speak about like me getting a $2 million check given to you, if we do close down, or if you're to close down and not have the same pattern and same ritual that is occurring to monetize that, you're not gonna be able to sustain it.
Right.
And so it's like, just for me in my experience, like, okay, so Bree, you want all of this thing in the life, and this is where you want to go in the trainer and as a trainer, and this is what impact you want to make. It's like, great, I see where you want to go. And so often I can get upset or down on myself that I'm not there yet. Like, I think this is for everybody in one stage of life or whatnot, but I can get bogged down. Like, but I'm not there yet. Well, just with that lottery, if I'm given it, what am I going to do to sustain that success?
Yeah.
There would be no sustaining of success because I hadn't yet, or have not yet, been able to master this key principle and foundations that actually stack on top of each other, create that success, and to make sure that that can be sustainable. And if it was just given to me, I would crash. And it's like it goes hand in hand. You know, you're not going to get that top job without working all the way up, because you're not going to have any of the information or skills or abilities to sustain the responsibilities that are given to you in that new role. So it's an interesting concept.
I'm going to bring up one comment over here because I like it, and it's...
Yes, please do.
Agnes, is that how you pronounce your name? I suck with pronouncing names.
I think it's Agnes.
Okay. If I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry. Everybody does it to me, so we're kind of cool now together. I would love to see a video on how to reward properly, how to use affection, praise, and food properly so it benefits the dog and owner. So let's speak about it right now. Like, I try to show a lot of videos and talk about this a lot, but let's talk about it right now since it's on the topic. Like, what do you think? I'm going to leave that on there. What do you think, like, people mess up when they're using reward improperly? I think if we talk about using it improperly, it's easier to understand how to use it properly, right? You know what I mean? Like, because the way that I look at it is all the ways that reward and affection and praise and food and everything this person is listing is used improperly throughout the day. When we take that stuff away, we're going to start to learn how to actually use it properly. We'll be left with a few times you actually should be delivering it, right? So, like, how do you approach it? How do you look at that?
So just by looking at this, I kind of look for a common denominator. I would say that affection, praise, and food are rewards. So when we speak about like how I would love to see a video on how to reward properly, I'd say that Russ did a really good job at explaining when to reward in the past. So I think it was like 30 seconds ago when we were going over it, you had spoken a lot about rewards and when not to give. So for example, when your dog is disobeying, there's no reward that should be given. But using affection and praise, I wouldn't separate those. I'd put affection as praise. And food, I'd say that food is also given in a sort of, that is affection. Like that's a reward, but I would talk about timely rewards for things. And when it comes to affection, that's the ultimate, most genuine reward I would ever give. So I would hold on to that, I don't even know a good example of that, but I would have that in my back pocket. Like that would be the last thing I would want to give, especially if that's what motivates that dog. Because that's genuine, and we feel it too as people when someone is actually meeting our needs. I'll talk about that. I would tend to take like the reward and praise and all that kind of stuff off the table, and I would start talking about the primary needs, what your dog needs before reward.
Yeah.
This is like food, shelter, and water. Give that. And I think actually this is kind of what you spoke to too, was taking it all away and then appropriately bringing it back in.
Yeah. Well, I look at it as finding like the resources that are important to your dog, right? So there's the basic ones, which is food, water, and peeing, I guess, right? Food, water, and bathrooming really is the three basic things. Like your dog will usually fall asleep when it's tired on its own. You don't really have control over that. But even that, you could control where your dog sleeps. But then there's the ones that people generally give out for free. What?
If it will sleep.
Right. But there's ones that just about everyone gives out for free. Like space is an extremely important resource to every animal. Space, when you control an animal's space, that's the whole idea of restricting its freedom in order to change its mindset, because you're controlling its space, a very important resource to it. And it starts to learn, why do we have dogs wait for permission to come out of their crate? It's not just because it looks nice. It's because you're controlling their movement from one space to the next space, right? And they start to view you differently because you own that space. And space is a very primal thing. When dogs, if you've ever hung out with groups of dogs, or I guess watch wolves probably do something similar. I've never been around wolves in real life. But
it's a goal.
Yeah, there's a place upstate New York I want to go to, a sanctuary. But like animals move each other using space, right? Because space is an important thing, and we give it to dogs for free. So there's food, water, bathrooming, space, right? Then there's toys. Then there's affection. Then there's play, because you can give a dog a toy, but you could also play with them, right? There's so many things that are overlooked that are given to dogs that should be given to dogs. I'm not saying don't give your dogs any space and never give them food and water and whatever, like obviously, but use those things as a currency. Now, I don't believe that you or I or any dog owner or trainer gets to decide the value of the currency. I think the dog gets to decide the value of the currency, right? So one dog might go crazy for one piece of kibble and just do anything you ask of it. Another dog doesn't give a shit, right? And yes, you could build up food drive, obviously, but we want to also look at what's really important to this dog as who the dog is. And when you start to control all of these things at once, you start to get every angle. You start to come at every angle of the dog, right? Because everything in its life becomes a currency. And currency is the reward, right? So the way to get me to do something is to give me money, right? I love money. And if you give me money and it's enough money, I'll do the thing you ask me to do. Right? That's the way that
just give me love and affection and acceptance and I thrive.
Yeah, that stuff is good too, right? So that's other resources that are important, and you're going to get a different behavior from somebody for the love and all that stuff. And that's actually cool that you bring it in, because exactly to the point is there's different currencies, right? And each one, depending on what it is, will get a different behavior and a different response, right? So we can see it in our own lives. Like if you want me to train your dog, you're going to have to pay me, right? If you want to hire me, I have to get money, right? That's how it works. There's a transaction, and that's my reward for the work that I put in. Now, Now, just because you're my friend doesn't mean you're going to get that, right? So that's different currencies. But if you're my friend, you'll get something else from me that the random strange doesn't get. We'll go out to eat together, right? Or whatever it is that you do with friends. With your dog, it's the same thing. You have all these different currencies of its life: food, water, playtime, going to the bathroom, where it goes to the bathroom, when it goes to the bathroom, where it sleeps, when it sleeps, all the space that it has access to. Every single thing that it does and doesn't do is a currency. And when you start to control all of that stuff, you're now the bank. And you get to decide when your dog gets paid and when it doesn't get paid based on the behavior that it gives you. And that's the way I view reward. I think that there's this massive misconception of reward being food and toys. Like, yeah, food and toys is awesome, but let's look at everything that's important to your dog and really become like the central banking system of your dog's life. And you decide when it gets what currency based on what your dog tells you is important to it in that moment and in general. And if you look at it like that, that's essentially what we all talk about all the time, of controlling everything in your dog's life to change the way it thinks and feels and acts, right? Because now it all comes from you. You're in charge. You become God to your dog.
Yeah, I really like how you break it down into that bank analogy. That really helps simplify it as well, because there's so many different services that a bank gives.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you go to the bank for a reason, but they control all of your finances. And in that, you don't just go to any bank. You don't just let any banker have control of your finances. You don't close your finances to just anybody. A lot of that is very secret and sacred, and a lot of emotions around banks and money. So like, it's a really good example, because you got to have trust in who is housing your money. A lot of people don't even put money in banks. It's a whole different discussion. They have it underneath their mattress.
Yeah.
But that builds trust. That builds consistency. That builds that perception of you lead. They all want to be led. I think that was like one of my things when I first learned. I was like, all dogs want leadership? Like, wow, okay. So like, and then it changed the way I viewed dogs, because I was that person at like Christmas time that was at the mall petting everybody else's dogs that were in line to meet Santa. Like, I didn't even have a dog at the time. And I went specifically so I could meet all the puppies that were in line. I'm like, can I pet the dog? You're like, oh, thank you. And like, that was me.
I always wanted to send pictures with my dogs, but I think I wanted to send the pictures with my dogs just because I was that Jewish kid who never got to go see Santa. So kind of want to do it for my kids now. But so I was like, Marley.
There's a white chick though at the mall petting dog. I wasn't even there for a photo, Santa.
You were just going up and down the aisle touching everyone's dogs.
Yeah, I'm the one that you look out for. That you're like,
yeah, you're the one that I tell everyone to stay away from.
Yeah. They should be hired to like go out and find clients for you. And not find them for you, but like go out and test them. Be like, dog? No.
See how the boundaries are, right?
Yeah, like you let up. I'm gonna have to report back to us.
Yeah. What's like looking back now, right? So you kind of said it's hard to imagine that like that was the same you and the same dog and the same all this stuff going on, right?
Look at his face. Look at the face of pure kind of terror. Like, look at him. He's in a harness. So let's look at that. He's in a front harness. This is what it was called an easy pull harness. Is it easy pull?
I don't know these names, but it's easy for him to pull in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also,
it's the perfect pull for a husky, you know.
Not the front one, the back one.
For him to pull.
Oh, apologies. Yes.
Yeah.
If I wanted to train him to pull appropriately on the back. There's lots of dogs with spinal alignment issues. I've seen a lot of huskies that are going into water therapy because of the back. And again, harnesses over long periods of time, it's like a straitjacket. You're just manipulating physically what they can and can't do, but doing this constantly, putting stress on the spine and the discs in there. So I didn't know that. I saw easy pull. I was told that just like that, but in a different perspective. I was told, yeah, it makes it so that they can't pull left or right. And I was like, perfect.
Yeah, and it might, but you also fuck your dog's body up.
Right? Not told to you. For $79.99, you can get like your early investment into water therapy later. Like it's sad. But then there's no linkage, right? Like later in life, it'd be like, wow, my dog just developed this back problem.
Yeah.
There's no, they still use the harness, but they're seeking water
Well,
therapy.
you would still use the harness, meaning if you didn't learn something otherwise, right? And you didn't go down this whole like cool journey that you're on, you would still use the harness. Even if it wasn't working, you'd continue to use it because it's what you were told will work best, right?
Absolutely, until I found in something else. Yeah. And that's just like, I give myself a lot of credit. It wasn't working, so I was always finding something different, but they weren't working either. But I was always persistent. Like I was always on top of it. Looking, being like, okay, well, this isn't going to work. And I'll never forget, as I tell you, I don't know if I told you, I got locked in a janitor's closet. My first, So my first puppy socialization course, we finally got to go to, Mav and me, finally. After the first year and a half, he hadn't eaten anything in a long time. So we were really happy about it. And we get to the school, and we arrived early, so we got kicked out. Then we had to wait in the parking lot. I was very excited. I was one of those owners. I was like, I'm very excited to get going. And we went there to work on his impulse control and how he reacted around distractions. Around dogs, he was nutty. Different dog parks every day. But so we get there. We got locked into the janitor's closet first 5-10 minutes. We were too distracted. Maverick was too distracting for the class that we went to. The distraction. Yeah, go figure, right? That's why we're there. And the instructor goes, you can just listen from the closet.
I'm sure that helped and made you feel great, right?
I cried. Well, at first, I looked at Maverick like I'm looking at the camera. Like, you got us done to the janitor's closet. I was like, this is like the lowest of low, Mav. Like, we're in the janitor's closet.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't even see the instructor, let alone hear her. And then, sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, so my question was, but it's cool because you kind of went back there for a little bit, so it's going to make the question even better. Okay. What's the one thing that you really wish you would have known, that somebody would have like gone over to Bree 3 years ago with Mav and be like, this is going to help you? What do you wish that was?
Ooh, so many things. Right away, though, off the bat, eliminate free roaming. So, like, don't even need to understand dog psychology, human psychology. Just eliminate free roaming. Don't let your dog run over everywhere.
Yeah.
That, like, just the thought would have evoked, like, what's free roaming? What does that mean? Why does that matter? It would have led me down a whole different trail of thought versus, hey, get a Baskerville muzzle and put it on him. That doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
He's still searching out everything, and he got the muzzle off.
And would you say that's the same thing that you would like, if now you can take the information and the journey you've been on and the experiences you've had, and you can give a message to the dog owners of the world of one thing that you wish they would know, what would that be?
Trust in yourself. Not even about dogs. Trust in yourself. When you feel that something's wrong, not right, go with it. And there's multiple times with Maverick, like when people were throwing out disorders from the DSM-5, so the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, that's like, hey, by the way, I think your dog has ADHD, has autism, literally all the things. One came with Asperger's, and I was like, I don't understand what you guys are talking about here. And it didn't jive right with me. But I kind of just let it pass because I didn't want the judgment, right? So like it was just very like, no, he doesn't have a mental health disorder, like go on. But I didn't know what was going on. And it was in that puppy class that they kept telling me about high value treats. And I kept trying all these different methods. So I guess what I would say is like trust your gut, go with what's coming up for you. And if you feel that something's a little bit off, it most likely is, seek it out, ask questions. Do not be scared to ask for help. Be scared to ask. Do not be scared to say, I don't know, because those are powerful questions or powerful things to ask. And I wish that back then I had known that instead of keep doing it anyway. Like I went back to the course with a couple of treats, and I just kind of always knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know where to go. So I would just say, put your blinders on. Don't listen to what anybody else has to say. Your dog doesn't get to think about the opinions of others, so you don't have to either.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. That's a message that everyone needs, dog owners or not. That's awesome what you just said, everything about it. I love it. We're going to wrap it up because it's almost been 2 hours. So this was very cool. I had a lot of fun. We can go on forever. But
good. Thank you.
People want to listen to us forever. At least not me. Probably you, they do. But thank you all for watching. Whoever tuned in, whoever watched, whoever's watching on the replay, listening, all that stuff. Thank you guys. You all are awesome. I love you all. You guys make this happen. And thank you, Bree, for coming on. This was a lot of fun. I had a great time chatting with you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to let people know where they can find you, follow you, and see all the awesome content you're going to be putting out?
I'm going to say please rewind and just listen to that sass, but it's so needed. It's very true. Yes, you can find me on BC Canine on Instagram and on Facebook. I don't have it. I believe I'm on YouTube, but you have to hit a certain. Sorry, laughing at me. Yeah,
I used to. Quick story, then we're ending this. I used to always be like, yeah, I'm on YouTube, but like it's like don't like same type of thing as what you're saying. Like I think I'm on YouTube, whatever. And then somebody from Brazil tagged me in their stories on Instagram of them watching my YouTube stuff that I had forgotten I ever put up. And I was like, okay, it matters. Like I'm on YouTube, right? And I don't put up a lot of content. Like these days, most of what my YouTube is for the podcast. And like occasionally I'll throw up like a testimonial and stuff. I should be more consistent with it, but I haven't been. But it's just as soon as you said that, that's what I thought of. It's like, yeah, that was my answer all the time. Was like, yeah, I think I'm on YouTube. I don't know how it works. And then somebody started watching me, and she was actually on the podcast, Raquel, and she's an awesome trainer in Brazil, and she was watching my YouTube content that I had forgotten even existed. So
I love that. That's what the power of the work, right? Like just be consistent and do it. I was going to say not only that, but like I think you need an X amount of subscribers to actually show up and be searched.
Yeah, I think so.
So like everybody follow me, and then I'll actually have a platform where people can search.
Right, everybody, like all 100 of my YouTube people or whatever it is, like go subscribe to.
People. That's a wicked amount. That's a lot of people. Even if 4 people come onto a live that I'm on, I'm like, that's 4 people. Like I know I'm going really excited about it. Like 4 people give a shit what I have to say.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah. So thank you guys for everyone who tuned in to listen to us. And I'd like to just end it with everybody looking at Maverick. Because this is, please don't. Oh, he did it. He was on his back.
He's like, leave me alone, Ma.
He does this really cute thing where he goes on his back. Yeah. And then I go and get it. And then he's like, where are we going? But say bye, Maverick. It wouldn't happen without this little guy.
He's almost doing it. All right, everyone. Love you all. Have an awesome night. Be kind to one another.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.